Hi, I'm Teri Robinson, the executive editor at SC Magazine, and welcome to RSA. I'm doing my first interview this morning with Anthony James. He is the CMO at CipherCloud. Hey, Anthony, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Teri? Nice to meet you.
Great. Well, welcome. So, hot topic on everybody's minds these days. It has been for a long time, but now with the deadlines looming, GDPR.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that people might not be prepared?
Yeah, I think definitely. What we've seen, we have some GDPR assets, but what we've seen is a really big uptick in interest.
Yeah.
People wanting to register to get information about GDPR, which you would think with the deadline looming, that would have been done, right?
Yeah, earlier.
Yeah. But people are scouring to try and get more information, and it's not just international, but it's domestic as well. So there's a lot of concern, I think.
So what are some of the impacts that you think we'll see from GDPR? And we can take it from the aspect of the consequences,
right?
But then also the impact on business as
right.
well.
It's interesting to look at both those angles. The impact, if you're not GDPR ready, is fairly substantial. I'm sure people know what the impact is. It's 4% of annualized revenue, or £20 million. It's an enormous amount of money.
Sure.
And in terms of readiness, when businesses think about GDPR, it has a lot of impact. It's like any compliance. We saw that with HIPAA and PCI. It kind of drove a lot of, not just technology, but processes and investment in making sure that people had the right mechanics in place. And I think this is driving the same response, but in a much more stringent way, because the fines previously were not as bad, so people might have skated by. Now, I think there's a really big demand to figure out how they can become GDPR compliant.
Well, and the regulators are serious too, correct?
Yeah. So the impact on the business is, what digital assets do they have? What data do they have? Where is it? How do they control it? And what, not just technology, but processes are in place to make sure that that data doesn't leave their control without being, I learned a word called pseudonymized, or pseudonymization, to make sure that it's protected, tokenized, encrypted, whatever it is, so that if it leaves their control, no one else can see it.
So this is kind of an opportunity too for businesses to transform their processes, maybe become more efficient?
I think so. I think it's going to do two things which are positive, right? If I take a step back and look at the last month and a half, we've seen some pretty major breaches, and people using cloud services and forgetting stuff, or we see the S3 buckets that were open, not because of Amazon or because of the company, just a misconfiguration or a mistake. And I think if you look at GDPR, it's going to tighten controls where people who are embracing cloud services, where theoretically the data is leaving their control, they're going to tighten that a little more and put more protection around their data, so that if it does happen again, then they're not out of compliance, they're protected, the data's always protected.
Great. So I'm not GDPR compliant now, or I haven't taken major steps at this point. Should I be frightened? And if so, what should I do?
I think you definitely need to take a look at the requirements. If you haven't gone and taken those steps, and there are a lot of steps, it's not just about buying a product or putting some training in place. It's a combination of all those things. So it's educate yourself. There is so much resource in the industry about GDPR. We offer stuff from our company, but there are other sources you can get just to get the basics of what does it mean to be compliant, and start thinking about where it is your people are handling data, how the data is moving around. Are you embracing cloud services? What does that impact? And then you can start to put the pieces in place. And I think if you start to do that now, you'll get compliant fairly quickly, but just figure out where all those things are, people and data.
Great. Those are the two main things.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it. Once again, I'm Teri Robinson, and I'm here with Anthony James from CipherCloud, and we're at RSA in San Francisco.